He is the best, and he's nice enough to join us now. Doc, it's Michael and Don. How you doing?
Good. We don't have rainouts much in this sport, but there are times that I envy you being able to get a day off that you don't get many of. And I'm glad that you spent it watching the Rangers play, because it turned out to be a disappointing game for Rangers fans. But maybe tonight will be different. I think we'll see the best game possible that they can play will be here.
Now, one thing, though, you get the rain out, but you got to make it up at some point, Doc, so you always have to pay the piper.
True. 162 times 9 plus all those other innings that are unpredictably long, and my hat's off to you.
Well, ours is always off to you. Let's talk about the Rangers. The general thought is that they outplayed the Kings and they lost 3-0. You called every single second. Do you think they outplayed them in Game 3?
No. I thought the Kings were surged. They were in old-fashioned shutdown mode. We don't have the trap that much anymore or anything like that, but they were so surgical defensively that I thought at that point they took it away from the Rangers. So, no, I really didn't think so. I thought the Rangers were far more competitive in the first two games. Now, that doesn't mean they didn't get chances and that there weren't saves that were necessary from Jonathan Quick, but I just thought defensively they weren't allowed to do very much once that became 1-0, and especially after it became 2-0.
Doc, you've been around this sport for a long time, around sports for a long time, and sometimes we're paid as talk show hosts or play-by-play guys to read the room. And, boy, the room did not look good for the Rangers after Game 3. They seemed down. They seemed defeated. When you see that, does that automatically carry over to the next game? Or more times than not, reading the body language kind of tells you how a team will play in the following game?
I've watched a lot of warm-ups where I thought, boy, they're really ready to go tonight. And this goes back through the years with different teams and then been terribly wrong once the game started. Sometimes it's somebody saying something in the room that automatically gives you a shot of adrenaline. It's a very tough read, and it's understandable that the morning after that game they would have been disheartened. But that can change really quickly. It can even change during the course of a game. In the 17 minutes the coaches get in the intermission. It's a tough read, and even though this is what we've got, Don and Michael, this is the time that we have, and it's all the information we have is what we get from the players until they drop the first puck, and then we see. But, yeah, it was a tough read the next day, but by the same token, today they seem fine. See how this plays out tonight.
You know, we find, Doc, in talking to fans during this stretch, that it's very, very dicey if you criticize Henrik Lundqvist at all. And I look at it, and this is a guy who's blown 3 2-goal leads. And I'm not saying he's played poorly, but everybody that we had on before this series began, Doc, said the only way the Rangers win is if Henrik Lundqvist stands on his head. Well, would you agree he has not stood on his head?
Yeah, no, he has not stood on his head, but I think the other thing, too, is that until I'd seen the replay 5 times, I misread the vulnerability he had on the goal by Carter with less than a second to go. It tipped direction off the skate blade of Dan Girardi, and it changed direction, and it was a hard shot. So I didn't hold him accountable for that one. No, there have been times when both goalies have looked vulnerable, and I think for that reason, that unless Quick shuts them down tonight, if the Kings win, I have a feeling that the MVP of the series is going to be Justin Williams and not one of the 2 goaltenders, just because both have had their remarkable stretches and both have had stretches when they've looked really, really human.
Yeah, there's no question. But some breaks have gone the Rangers' way, too. The second goal, the shorthanded goal in Game 1 by Hagelin went off of Voinov. So it's all how you respond, Doc, to those breaks. And it just seems like Los Angeles has just done a better job. They look like a team that is on the verge of 40 wins in the postseason over the last 30 years.
And one of the things we've discussed, too, Don, back through the days here, is that 17 of these guys got up 3-0 against New Jersey and then learned the hard way that you don't let anybody back in. But whether they're able to assert their will, a game is a battle of wills, and that's what tonight is about. And that's why I think that number 30 in goal is going to be spectacular, and the Rangers are going to play their best game. Whether it's enough to beat this team is another matter. We'll have to see. But the one thing that struck me is how important that first goal was that was gotten the other night by the Kings, because you could see they grew a little bigger, more confident, and they sure shut the Rangers down defensively, especially trying to generate plays in the neutral zone so many times it was turned over.
Dustin Brown of the Kings said that he believes his teammates were thinking after the 3-0 win about a parade. The quote is, I think it's fair to say anybody who is not thinking about that going into the next game is not being honest. Is that something that the Rangers put on the blackboard tonight? Do they have to motivate their team with something like that, or does it come from within?
Yeah, I think you probably do, because you're looking for anything at this point. But he was being honest, because you will talk to people who get up 3-0 in series or wind up with an advantage that they will not concede publicly, but they will think about a lot. The only difference is that Brown said so. But you can't help not, especially when you had one 2 years ago. You can't help it crossing your mind. To us, they would mostly say, no, we can't think about that. But that's what a team says when they bond together like that, and they agree on how they're going to approach things, and they learn through time how to do it. But it's a rare thing that Dustin said. I'm glad he did. It's nice to get something that's unpredictable, because we've all slugged through enough press conferences and things that most of what we get is predictable, but we still come down to find out anyway, because you feel like you're going into a final exam without studying if you don't go to a morning skate and listen.
Doc, I talked to your partner, Eddie O, earlier today. We had Barry Melrose on yesterday, and they both agreed that sometimes it's just best to stick with what got you here and not make major changes when you're facing desperation. But, boy, I'd like to see maybe Carcillo get in the lineup, change some lines around, try to do something. Any indication on how AV may approach the lineup for this elimination game tonight?
No, he wouldn't say, and we watched specifically for that, and Carcillo did stay out for the full 60 minutes of the Rangers practice, stayed on with the guys that you know aren't going to play. Whether that means we aren't going to get a surprise at the end or we are, I don't know. For an old dinosaur like me that likes the rugged individuals, it would amuse me if he played. He's got a goal-scoring touch, which is kind of nice. But I could understand why the Dorsett and Dominic Moore and Brian Boyle combination would not be broken up, because they've been able to forecheck. They've done a great job of controlling the puck when they've been out there. And I don't know that they want to change that kind of chemistry. Danny's a little more unpredictable than Dorsett is, too. And I don't know. It's a difficult decision for a coach to make, especially with the effectiveness of 28, 22, and 15, the way that they've played. I really like what they've done. It's a shame for the competitiveness of the game that the big guns haven't been able to connect.
No, let me piggyback on that. A lot of people we've had on, including Hitchcock, the former coach of Nash, said, no, Nash is playing great. He's doing all the little things. And Donna said, it's almost an $8 million cap hit, not for doing the little things. It would be like, Alex Rodriguez bunting when he was with the Yankees. I mean, that's not why he's there. So do you believe that Nash is playing well?
Yeah, I think he's been effective that way, but you still look for him to finish when he gets the chances, and you look for him to drive the net, as he's done a couple of times, but it's just not gone for him. The same for Richards. The regular season is to entertain hockey fans, and I think the regular season here in New York really entertained hockey fans, just like the postseason. But these are the guys you rely on at this critical time, and they're facing the best defensive players on the other side of the puck, too. You realize that all through. But the totals on 80 shots are 3 goals, and so you recognize that's not normal.
Talking with Mike Emrick. He's calling the game tonight on NBC Rangers against the Kings, Game 4 at the Garden. And we have to finish with this, because when you were on with us last time, we talked about it off the air, and we didn't know the answer. You told us what a big Pirate fan you are. How come?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Radio. Just like you're so influential to Yankee fans, Bob Prince, who was the announcer for the Pirates in the doldrums of the 1950s, and my brother and I in rural Indiana would drive nails into scoreboards and keep track of the games on radio, inning by inning, hanging the numbers up. We were fanatics. And at a time that the Pirates were just starting to get good in the late 50s, we happened on to Bob Prince. My brother is still belligerently a Brooklyn Dodger, Los Angeles Dodgers fan, but Bob made me a Pirates fan. And I've been a fanatic ever since. And we got Polanco into his first game last night.
Yeah.
And he got a single, and he ran really hard on the home run by McCutchen. And I think the guys had to get him aside and say, look, there's a certain way that you run when you know a home run's been hit, and you don't try to show all your speed around the bases when it's a home run trot.
Yeah, he's an amazing prospect. Doc, who was your favorite player?
I like Nazarowski because I was a second baseman in high school, but I was more nearsighted and less skilled than Bill was. But I guess that was because I was a position player, and I was such a fanatic that at age 65, I went down to fantasy camp and got to meet Bill.
Wow.
And I played second base on our team. John Wayner, who is now one of the broadcasters, of course, has been for the Pirates for a while, was our manager. And it was an experience that I have not failed to think about, even on Christmas Day ever since. Anybody that's got a chance to go to Yankees fantasy camp, do it, because it'll be a lifetime memory.
Now, have you ever wanted to call baseball?
Before I saw hockey for the first time, as I said, I envy you guys for what you're able to do. I wanted to do that until I saw hockey for the first time at age 14 in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and then it became fanatically hockey only. I was reminded by a guy you may have met, Michael, Stan Savran in Pittsburgh, who works with Root Sports. He and I were students at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, and they sent us down to Miami Field to do a game in April of 1969 between Miami and Kent State. And Stan had to remind me that Thurman Munson played in the game.
Wow.
And Steve Stone was available to pitch but did not. But I was awful. There are only so many times you can refer to which way the flag in center field is blowing.
Well, you're invited
and it's not every other pitch. I'll tell you that. I learned that. I was terrible.
Open invitation to come do an inning on Yes whenever you want if you drop by a Yankee game.
You're a great guy. I appreciate the invitation. I'll just listen to you. Thanks.
Well, we'll be listening to you tonight. Thanks a lot,
Thanks,
Doc.
man.
Have a great game.
Okay.